Yeah, I know in the last couple of years, Marvel's been great with the omnibuses that they've given us, but there's still quite a lot that I want. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. Kicking this list off at number 20, I'm going to go with X-Force by Craig Kyle and Chris Yost. I'm not entirely sure if it's Yost or Yost, so you're just going to have to forgive me with that one. But this was one of those runs that was coming out when I was first getting into comics, and I remember going into Forbidden Planet and they had 2 hardcovers of this. For some stupid reason, my idiot child brain bought volume 2, and then I just never really knew what the full story of this was. And if I'm being completely honest with you, the complete collections of this run are basically a myth. So I'd love it if now that I'm a bit older, I could go back and read this without having to break the bank just to get 2 paperbacks of it. I loved what I've read of Remender's run, and that's definitely one that I do have to go back to. And I'd just love it if the run before that could also get the omnibus treatment so that I could have it in the collection. Number 19, I'm going to go with Captain Britain and MI13. Now this one's so low down on the list because of the fact that I'd just be happy with an oversized hardcover. But we all know that Marvel loves slapping on that logo just so that we have to pay a bit more omnibus tax. Yep, Howard the Duck, I'm talking about you. But maybe it's me just being biased because I'm in the UK, but I would absolutely love to go back and revisit this run. It came out shortly after Secret Invasion, and because there was just so much other stuff that was going on in the Marvel universe, I feel like this is one of those underrated runs that has just been completely forgotten about. If you don't know a lot about Captain Britain, I've already done a video on him, but he's a great character, and we've already got a reprint of the run that was done by Alan Moore, and I think it'd be great if we could just keep that momentum going, and I think that this would be the next best run that you could put into this format. It's only about 15 or so issues long, but at the end of the day, if you print it, I'm gonna buy it. Number 18, I'm gonna go with Avengers by Geoff Johns. Now it's strange that this hasn't already been solicited because you've got Geoff Johns, who's one of the biggest names in comics, and you've got the Avengers, who are one of the biggest properties in all of pop culture. I do have to admit this isn't Geoff Johns at his best, nor is it the Avengers at the best, but I think that this is great just because of where it places in history. There aren't a lot of Geoff Johns Marvel books that you can read, and I'm surprised that Marvel hasn't really capitalized on that. I love the stuff that he did with the Red Skull and the Red Zone story arc, but it's been a number of years since I've read this, and I would love the chance to go back and reread it without having to hunt down those complete collections, and I think an omnibus would be a great way to do that. Number 17, and again this could just be another complete collection, but I've got Punisher by Greg Rucka, and that again is going to be the reason why it's so low down on this list, because I think there's bigger runs that probably deserve the format more, but in terms of a run that just deserves any kind of attention, this would definitely be close to the top of the list. It's why I included it so highly in my Where to Start Punisher, because I just loved that this felt like the next evolution of Frank Castle, without really taking him away or changing who the Punisher is too much. It focused more on the effect that the Punisher has on the people around him, and it forced Frank to really look at the consequences of his actions. It's a great underrated run, and it has a fantastic crossover with Daredevil and Spider-Man, so please Marvel, stop ignoring the Punisher in omnibus format and just give us this book. Next up, I would love an omnibus of the Secret Avengers. Now I probably should have said this earlier on, but of course this is my own personal list, and you might not see some of the picks that you want in this, because a lot of my omnibus picks are about the ones that I remember when I was growing up and I'd like another chance to revisit them. But for me, the period of comics that I really enjoyed was the one that most people seem to hate, and that is the 2000s to the 2010s. And there was a good couple of years where it felt like everything was just an Avengers title, and one of the ones that completely fell under the radar for a lot of people was the Secret Avengers. This was set after Civil War, so you had a team of Avengers that were going on covert spy missions, and there was a great cast of characters. It really tied in well to Ed Brubaker's Captain America run, and it was taken over later by Rick Remender, and I think that that was also a good part of the run as well, so I'd just like one complete omnibus of this. You get to see many characters coming in that you don't often see working with other Avengers like Moon Knight and Beast, and for me I just don't really think that you can go that wrong with Ed Brubaker and Rick Remender, so why not put them both in a book and just give us this title. Number 15, and again this is coming out at a similar time because I've got Avengers The Initiative. This was started out by Dan Slott, and there was a good handful of artists that came in throughout the book, and this was more looking at the side of the Marvel universe that decided to sign up for the Superhero Registration Act. And honestly, I just love an omnibus of this because of the fact that I've got the 2 complete collections, and if you think the paper is thin in recent omnibuses, I genuinely could see my hand when I'm reading this book. Everything on both sides of Civil War I'd really like to see, because you got some great scenes with Spider-Man in this, and you also just got some other members of the Marvel universe that you often don't get to see. And it's a shame that the title that did that is no longer at front and centre, so I just wish it'd get a second chance. choice. Number 14, and if you don't already hate my choices, you're definitely going to hate this one because I've got Civil War. Yep, I am an event apologist. I love them. I also love the omnibuses that Marvel brings out of them. And in actual fact, this pick genuinely says Civil War or just any other event omnibus. In particular, the second close runner to this was going to be Secret Wars. I just love those events that have war in the title, it seems. But yeah, I'd love to see Secret Wars in this format because it was left out of Hickman's Avengers omnibuses and it does feel a bit incomplete. But Civil War's a completely different beast. This is an event that I actually don't mind. And Civil War was this monumental thing that it seemed like all of comics stopped to pay attention to. Mostly because of the release issues that it had, but that's a completely different story altogether. And I think in hindsight, because of the fact that people now realise that this wasn't a permanent thing that meant that everything was going to change for the rest of the time, people might actually remember it more fondly if they went back and read it now. Especially if it included all of those tie-ins. I love the stuff with Wolverine, there was some great Punisher issues, and also the Fantastic Four stuff. Number 13, I'm going to go with Old Man Logan by Geoff Lemire. Full disclaimer, I have only read the first issue with this, and the reason why it's on this list, and also beating out some other runs that I've read and enjoyed, is because of just how hyped this is. I love Geoff Lemire, I love Old Man Logan as a character. I recently reviewed All New Wolverine and he appeared in that, and one thing that I wanted was to see more of him, and I'm a bit disappointed because of the fact that when Marvel Now and the Battle World stuff was all happening, there was just so many new series that were starting that I didn't know what to pick up. This definitely seems like the one that I should have grabbed. I remember really enjoying the first issue when I read it a few years ago, and I know that Geoff Lemire was only on for 24 issues, and then I believe it was Ed Bryson that came on and did the rest. I'm just happy to go with the flow on this one if they just want to print the Geoff Lemire stuff or they want to do the full run. As long as it's as good as everybody's saying and I have a great time with the book, I'm happy as long as it gets printed. Number 12, another one that you might expect to be a bit higher, but I've got Al Ewing's The Immortal Hulk. Now yes, before you start hating me in the comments, I do really want this book. I love the first two hardcovers that I've already read, to the point where I've sold them because of the fact that I feel like this has to happen. Now that we've got Thor by Jason Aaron, this seems like the next book that the community collectively just all needs. So the reason why it's a bit lower down on my list is because I think this is gonna happen within the next year. Because it's one of those rare books that's critically acclaimed, fan loved, and for a character that a lot of people want to see more runs in Omnibus. Sure, I'd love to get Bruce Jones, but this is the one that made it onto the list. This is a fantastic Hulk story that's really looking at what it means to be the Green Giant monster. It's more of a psychological horror than anything, and it already seems like this is pretty much the Hulk book that we all point to and say that people should read. And yep, in case you haven't seen it, I did include it in my Where to Start the Hulk. And yes, I'm gonna keep referencing that series throughout this video because it's the only thing that keeps this channel afloat. But this is a great run that I can't wait to read the end of because of the fact that now that I've sold my oversized hardcovers, I pretty much need an omnibus to happen because they've gone stupidly out of print since I sold them. Number 11, another shocker that it's so high because I've got Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky. I love the first hardcover of this. The art's phenomenal. I just love what it's doing with Matt Murdock. Daredevil must be the most consistently well-written character in the last 20 or so years of comics, and this is no exception. And I know that a lot of people have said that the rest of the run doesn't really hit the same high that it did at the beginning, and it seems to be getting a little bit over convoluted by having its own event and stuff like that. But either way, as you can see behind me, if you put Daredevil on an omnibus, I'm gonna buy it, and this is gonna be no exception. But I do also feel like this is another guaranteed one, so that's why I'm putting it a bit lower down. And yep, this also featured on me Where to Start Daredevil. Please click on that, I need the views. Number 10, and possibly the earliest run that's going to be on this list, but I've got Captain America by Mark Gruenwald. Mark Gruenwald went on for years writing Captain America, and the story arcs that I've read from this I've really enjoyed. I love the stuff with US Agent. I even thought the stuff with Catwolf was quite quirky and fun. Yep, definitely gonna get hated for saying that. I'd love to read the gaps in this series that I haven't managed to get my hands on yet, and I think having that in a couple of omnibuses would be the best way to do that. Number 9, and definitely showing me age now because I've got pretty much anything Ultimate Marvel Universe, but in particular I'd really love to see an Ultimates by Jonathan Hickman omnibus. This was such an underrated and overlooked run because of the fact that it came out after the Ultimate Universe had rebooted, and the general consensus was that if it wasn't a Spider-Man title then it wasn't worth reading. But I completely disagree, and this to me symbolises when I was collecting comics in single issues, and it was one of those hidden gems that I just wish more people would have picked up. Giving it an omnibus would definitely get a new set of eyes on it, and I just think it'd be great because of the fact that Jonathan Hickman's now one of the biggest names in comics. As well, it's definitely not to the same quality, but I hope that we do get an Ultimate Fantastic Four omnibus. And as you guys know, I'd love for them to finish out Ultimate Spider-Man because that's a run that I think is just the best. Number 8, and the King of the Castle's back because I've got Punisher by Matt Fraction. It seems like I'm saying this for near enough every pick on this list, but this is such a massively underrated run. It came out connected to Civil War, so it is really integrated to the rest of the Marvel universe, and that's actually what I really like about this. This went on for a good number of years as well, so I definitely think it would deserve the omnibus treatment, especially because of the fact that I committed when Marvel printed this in a complete collection, but then there was no volume 2. Marvel, what was the plan? But the Punisher is one of my favourite Marvel characters, so maybe I am a little bit biased towards this run because I know that some people don't really enjoy it, but I like it because of the fact that it was the Punisher on the run, and then you did have him just going on these different adventures. It's been a good number of years since I've had a chance to read this start to finish, and I'd love another opportunity to do that, especially if it's in an omnibus. Number 7, and you knew his name had to appear at some point because I've got Doctor Strange by none other than the man himself, Mark fucking Waid. Yep, another one that charted highly in me where to start Doctor Strange, so I definitely recommend checking this out, and I am so surprised that this didn't get an omnibus in time for this recent movie. You could have included everything in this run. You could have had the sci-fi stuff at the start and then combine it with the Surgeon Supreme run. That would make a great omnibus that I think a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to read when it was first coming out. It's a more intergalactic story. You get to see him going against Galactus, and it's just Doctor Strange in an environment that he's not used to, but he still thrives, and I think that this is one of the best characterizations that we've had of Stephen in a good long while. I think it deserves the omnibus treatment, but I am also a little bit biased because I absolutely love New Enough everything that Mark Waid does, to the point that I am excited for his Flash run to get an omnibus, which you can already pre-order from the channel's sponsor, Organic Price Books. They've got great packaging, fast shipping, and amazing customer services, and if you use code WOOFWOOF, you'll get $2 off your order. And if you're ordering 3 or more books and you want them to be delivered together, make sure you use code WOOFWOOF, ship it together for 5% off your entire order. Don't worry, you can just copy and paste them from the description down below, and you can use these codes as many times as you like. Number 6, and I'm going to be cheating with this pick, and I've tried to make it a point that I don't include any runs that are already in progress. So for example, I'm not going to include stuff like Thor by Jason Aaron Volume 2 or Ultimate Spider-Man's Volume 3 and 4, but one thing that I would really love is a complete Brian Michael Bendis Avengers. And I'm not just saying new Avengers, I mean everything. Do Avengers Disassembled, then go into New Avengers, then have everything that's included within that. Do the Dark Avengers, do the Mighty Avengers, just make sure that we have absolutely everything. I'm feeling polite, even include the stuff with the Sentry at this point, because it's been near enough 10 years and I'm kind of over that now. But for me, this was comics when I was getting into it. I'd go to the shelves of the new issues and everything would be Avengers or Brian Michael Bendis, or both. And now that it's been over a decade since that's happened, and also since Bendis really hasn't maintained the same reputation that he had back then, I do think it's important to remember the massive highs that he reached during his prime. And for me, even though I do love Ultimate Spider-Man and Daredevil and Alias, and I think that they may be written better, I also just think the way that he structured the entire Avengers universe was fantastic. And I don't even know how the mapping would work, or how they would print this, or how many volumes it'd need, but either way, whichever way they do it, I'd still buy it. Number 5, I've got Venom by Rick Remender. I think this is also in the exact same position as it was in the list that I did 2 years ago. But again, it's Rick Remender. He very rarely does a bad book, or at least something that I don't enjoy. And I think there was something really special when he was at Marvel Comics, even if he did leave because he didn't like the way that he was treated. The only thing that sort of concerns me with this is if it would be released as a Venomnibus Volume 4. Since we've got the upcoming Venomnibus by Donny Cates, I hold out hope that they could just do this as its own volume. I want everything start to finish. I don't want anything missing from this, because this was just great storytelling, and I don't like the fact that those complete collections, once again, massively out of print. Number 4, and I might be cheating, but then again, that's kind of what I do on all of these lists, but I've got everything modern Marvel Star Wars that hasn't been printed just yet. So yep, this would technically mean a Volume 2 to continue on from Star Wars by Jason Aaron. I want the rest of the Darth Vader stuff. I'd like an omnibus that just contains stuff like the Han Solo run, the Leia run, and pretty much everything else that they've done, because honestly, some of the best books that I've read in the last couple of years have come from this imprint. I also recently read Darth Vader by Charles Soule, and I had a great time with it. And the fact of the matter was, the rest of the stuff that I've already read was so good that I actually rated that lower than anything else. So I'd love to see what else is in this universe. I know that they've got the War of the Bounty Hunters stuff, but I don't know if that's also going to be collected in other formats. Like, is that the equivalent of an event omnibus, and when they eventually do a Star Wars Volume 2, is it going to be contained in there? Maybe that's a video I could do. But since 2015, when Marvel were printing Star Wars comics again, I have loved everything that I've read so far, so of course I'm just going to blind buy anything that they release. Number 3, and again, it's a bit bit of a mix of a few things, but I'd love a Moon Knight by Ellis, Lemire and Bemis omnibus. I think this is more possible now, especially since the way that they printed the Moon Knight by Houston run. They collected a few different runs in there, so I think this would be possible, and they could even just label it the Mr. Knight omnibus. I don't think we realised at the time just how great it was to be a fan of Moon Knight at that time. I wasn't collecting in single issues, I had to catch up after. But the Warren Ellis run in particular is very difficult to get your hands on, and I know that there has been a little bit of controversy surrounding him lately, and that's not a conversation that I'm intelligent enough to get involved in, but at the same time I would still like this book. What a great couple of years it was for Moon Knight, especially with the Lemire stuff, and I know that some people want that oversized hardcover, and they did recently reprint this in complete collection, so I don't know if that hinders its chances, but the same way, if I can wish for something, this is definitely going to be third place. Number 2, and again it might just seem like I'm saying a vast number of years and hoping that some way it could be printed, but I'm going to go with everything that Dan Slott wrote for Spider-Man. Yeah, I know that this would work out to be quite a number of volumes. I don't think it'd be at Conan level, but I also don't think it'd be that far off. But I mean everything. I want Brand New Day, I want Big Time. Even though it wasn't written by Dan Slott, I'd like the Gauntlet in the middle of it. Give us Worldwide, give us Superior Spider-Man, because there was just so much great storytelling in here that I think a lot of people wrote off straight away. The thing with Spider-Man is as well, it just seems to be the case that you have to hate whatever the modern run is. And because I was just getting into comics, I really liked Dan Slott's Spider-Man. It was the only thing that I knew outside of Ultimate. This to me was Spider-Man that was coming out month to month, and I just think it'd be great if, even if it'd end up being like 10 or so volumes, I could just have a complete Dan Slott Spider-Man run. But yeah, maybe it's the case that this run is bad and I've just got nostalgia glasses, but either way, I'd like a chance to see if that's the case. And my number 1 pick, and unfortunately it hasn't changed from the last time that I did this video, but I'm more determined to say it because it's Iron Man by Matt Fraction. Now, anytime I do a video like this, people always tell me I'm wrong for having an opinion, but I've recently reread Iron Man by Matt Fraction thanks to Marvel Unlimited, and this series is still great. What I love about this is, it's something that just rolls with the punches every time. Did Civil War just happen? Yeah, okay, I'll tell a great story. Norman Osborn now pretty much rules the Marvel Universe? Okay, great, I've got something that Tony Stark can do. Just baffles me how this series is A, this good with everything that was going on in the Marvel Universe, and B, the fact that it hasn't been printed in Omnibus by Marvel. Now, I know we did have those 2 oversized hardcovers which had about 19 or so issues each, which ironically weren't labelled as omnibuses on the side, but nowadays they would be. Again, Howard the Duck. But yeah, I've got all this hype because of the fact that I'm reading this at the minute and it's still just as good, if not better than I remembered it. The art's still not great, everybody looks very greasy for some reason, but that's something that I can take on the chin for this great storytelling. This is up there with Ed Brubaker's Captain America for me, and I think considering the fact that that was coming out at the same time, and we've already got all of that in Omnibus, why not give us this one? Either way, Marvel, if you do end up printing this, I'll forgive you for the delay. I won't really forgive you for the fact that you printed a complete collection volume 1, and then just seem to give up again. Like, do you have something against Matt Fraction? What's that about? Either way, this was my number 1 pick last time. It's still my number 1 pick this time, and I hope next time that I do this video, when it's years and years from now, I don't have to have this as my number 1 pick yet again. But that's my list, and we'll probably have a discussion over on our Reddit page, r/MaddogComicCommunity. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and until next time, just make sure that you stay safe, and stay mad all you dogs. Woof woof! See you the next video.